Tonight, closing time for Canada's oldest company.
This is very, very heartbreaking.
The end of an empire. Customers cash out on the final day of Hudson's Bay.
It's like our family's being ripped apart.
What's next for thousands of employees, and will any part of the retailer's legacy live on?
It was very hectic and stressful.
Wildfire evacuation support. Why First Nations leaders are calling for help to free up hotel space.
We don't have enough of the accommodations in hotels.
And proposals from the Prime Minister ahead of a meeting with Canada's premiers.
It's a critical time for our country. The world's certainly more divided and dangerous.
Plus, the risk of relying on AI for medical advice.
So ChatGPT is my new doctor.
What you need to know about searching to self-diagnose.
There is a lot that ChatGPT is still getting wrong that doctors will be getting right.
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Good evening. Today marks the end of an era forever changing Canada's retail landscape. After 355 years in business, the Hudsons Bay Company, or better known to shoppers as the Bay, is now closed for good.
First we lost Simpsons, and then Eaton's, and then Sears, now the Bay. So it's like, what's left for us old people who like to actually go and shop?
While the Bay may be the oldest Canadian retailer to close, it joins a list of others that have come and gone. Simpsons had a major presence across Canada, first opening in 1858 as a dry goods store before evolving into a national chain. After selling many of its department stores to the Bay, it eventually folded in 1991. Eaton's, at one point the largest retail organization in the country, was founded in 1869. Very much a part of the fabric of this country, it went bankrupt and shut down as a company in 1999, while Sears Canada lasted only 65 years, closing in 2018. The closure of the Bay brought on feelings of nostalgia for many shoppers, but as CTV's Kamal Karmali shows you, the bankruptcy brings feelings of sadness, loss, and an uncertain tomorrow for employees.
This is what remains of Canada's oldest company. Hudson's Bay, woven into the fabric of the country's history, now left almost completely bare. Empty shelves, scattered items, odd and mismatched knickknacks scattered across the floor, with customers grabbing whatever they can.
What did you pay for this?
$50.
Was it worth it?
I think so.
But this story is about them.
You won't work like 30 years and more.
The employees.
It's like our family's being ripped apart.
More than 8,000 across the country left without jobs after today.
It's a lot of family. We've all grown together.
It's lots of emotions.
Imad Al-Jabori is one of them, speaking through tears.
This is very, very heartbreaking.
It's one last goodbye to the workplace that's felt like a home. Just like others, he's been let go without severance pay.
To be let go in the end without nothing, without even the slimmest slight of hope.
Facing financial challenges, the company initially planned to shut down all but 6 stores. But with no buyer in the picture, it later said it would liquidate those stores as well.
Tomorrow when we wake up, think about it, it'll be the first time in Canada in 350 years that we haven't had the Bay.
Canadian Tire has made a move to buy the Bay's intellectual property, including the iconic logo and stripes.
We could see something on the order of, a smaller format like a Winners or a Marshalls or some iteration of the brand in the market.
Questions now remain on what will happen to these massive multi-level storefronts, with many lease agreements already being snapped up. BC Mall owner Ruby Liu has announced her company will take on more than 24 leases in hopes of redesigning the stores in BC, Alberta, and Ontario.
Oh, sorry, it's okay. I wish you all the best.
But for these employees, there's an emptiness.
It's like a bad dream. I keep pinching myself and I keep telling myself this cannot be real. This cannot end like this.
Not knowing where to go next as this historic chapter comes to a close. Kamal Karamali, CTV News, Toronto.
Developing news out of the U.S. tonight. A suspect is in custody following what FBI officials are calling a targeted terror attack that left multiple people injured in Colorado.
How can I help? And they have really bad burns all up on their legs. And then I went over to this other grass area that was right by the front entrance. And there was another lady on the ground with really bad burns on her legs.
Other witnesses say they saw a man throwing an alleged Molotov cocktail at a group of pro-Israel demonstrators, setting them on fire at an event in Boulder. 6 victims were rushed to hospital, 1 with life-threatening injuries. The event was in support of Israeli hostages who remain in Gaza. Thousands of people have been affected by wildfires in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta this weekend. Hot, dry conditions fueling the fires and threatening communities. With many evacuated, the problem now is finding a safe place for everyone to stay. CTV's Alex Karpa on the calls for help to free up hotel space.
As wildfires burn, evacuation efforts continue across northern Manitoba in a desperate pursuit for safety. Thousands of people have now been forced south, including Deanne Campbell and her daughter Deavian.
We've never experienced anything like this before, so it was very, very kind of scary.
They didn't have much time to leave their hometown of Flin Flon. They packed what they could and hit the road, but the situation around them was unlike anything they'd ever seen.
It was also really yellow, almost like there was a filter outside, and was scary.
Deanne and Deavian are just 2 of the thousands of people displaced by the wildfires and staying in evacuation centers in Winnipeg, a situation now posing another issue.
We don't have enough of the accommodations in hotels.
Indigenous leadership is calling on the government to suspend ongoing and upcoming conferences to make room in hotels for arriving evacuees.
They are definitely backlogged.
As evacuations ramp up in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta, the dry, hot, and smoky conditions are creating a taxing situation for the firefighters who continue to battle the flames.
At the end of the day, I think it's simple to say there is never going to be enough firefighters.
Fire Chief Ken McMullen says fighting these raging wildfires is grueling work and is concerned with the forecasted heat and dry conditions throughout the summer months.
When I checked this morning, there was only 1 province or territory currently without a fire, and that was Prince Edward Island. Everybody else has something.
And dry and hot conditions in Saskatchewan are prompting more evacuation notices.
The winds are shifting, and we're doing everything we can with over 20 aircraft in excess of 1,000 people on the ground.
There is some cooler weather coming to parts of the prairies in the next week, which could bring some precipitation, but will most likely not be enough to change the trajectory of the ongoing wildfires. Alex Karpa, CTV News, Winnipeg.
Prime Minister Mark Carney has officially named his permanent chief of staff. The PM declaring in a social media post, "I am pleased to announce that Marc-Andre Blanchard will serve as my chief of staff beginning in July." Blanchard served as Canada's ambassador to the UN from 2016 to 2020. He will take over for interim chief of staff and ex-Liberal cabinet minister Marco Mendicino, who has agreed to stay on until early summer. The Prime Minister is set to meet with premiers in Saskatoon. High on the agenda, strengthening Canada's economy and eliminating interprovincial trade barriers. CTV's Jeremy Sharon has a preview of tomorrow's highly anticipated meeting.
Well, welcome everyone.
Ahead of Monday's meeting with Canada's premiers, Prime Minister Mark Carney told energy sector leaders in Calgary this morning they'll play a key role in boosting Canada's economy.
It's a critical time for our country. The world's certainly more divided and dangerous, and the imperative of making Canada an energy superpower in all respects has never been greater.
Tomorrow, Carney will host a First Ministers meeting in Saskatoon where national infrastructure proposals will be a focus. His government has promised to fast-track nation-building projects and has asked premiers to identify their priorities.
The sense is this is going to be a highly robust discussion. The premiers have already been having their conversations about these things.
Morning, everyone, or afternoon.
In a joint press conference today, Ontario and Saskatchewan's premiers Doug Ford and Scott Moe signed a memorandum of understanding.
Perfect, thank you.
Agreeing to remove barriers to trade that exist between their provinces.
Together as Team Canada, we can unlock free trade within Canada and build a stronger, more resilient economy that can stand tall on its own.
Today's agreement, the latest in a growing list of interprovincial trade deals that have been signed.
All of these are steps forward to a lower regulatory differences between the provinces, and it's all of them together collectively, I think, are a positive for our nation.
Eliminating interprovincial trade barriers has been a priority for the Prime Minister and the Premiers since before the federal election.
It's time for the Premiers to put up or shut up. This is, again, the time to be bold. We had a sense of real urgency about 10 weeks ago because of the Trump threats. Let's not lose that.
Carney's government has promised to remove all federal barriers to interprovincial trade by Canada Day, a pledge he says could boost this country's economy by up to $250 billion. Heather?
Thanks, Jeremy. CTV's Jeremy Sharon in Ottawa tonight. Another setback in the ongoing labor dispute between Canada Post and its unionized employees. Canada Post has rejected a proposal from the Canadian Union of Postal Workers to send their dispute to binding arbitration. It follows a request from the Crown Corporation to have the federal Minister of Jobs step in and force its unionized employees to vote on the last contract offer.
Arbitration is a long, drawn-out and very legal process. It would leave our employees still without a contract. But more importantly, it sidelines their right to vote and puts their voice to the side.
We're still able to bargain. That's not going on right now. But no one's walked away at this point.
The two sides have been at an impasse for weeks. On the medical front, researchers in Saskatchewan are taking a deeper look at the connection between our gut and our brain. As CTV's Alison Bamford explains, a possible treatment for Alzheimer's could be stocked at your local grocery store.
It turns out milk doesn't just build strong bones, but possibly sharp minds too.
The gut is our second brain, as we could say.
And a potential treatment for Alzheimer's might just be in the dairy aisle.
If the gut is working well, so everything is going to be improved as well, right? Especially the brain.
At the University of Saskatchewan, Anna Silva and her team are testing compounds in milk kefir, a fermented drink similar to yogurt, to see if they can slow the progression of Alzheimer's in mice. The team is advancing previous work done in Brazil that studied kefir effects on fruit flies with promising results.
It's kind of natural for us to look at something that is like a natural product and imagine and see something that is more than just a food.
Serena Malta has been part of the research since day one, now visiting from Brazil to continue the work.
We started with 2 undergrad students, and now we have so many people in so different countries and so many experts that join us in this journey.
And it doesn't stop at dairy. Lucas Bernardis is also testing Saskatoon berries to see their effects on Alzheimer's.
This could result in a product that we could buy in supermarkets, store, pharmacies. So seeing it reaching this far, it's pretty awesome.
Encouraging research that for Silva is a full circle moment. She lost her grandfather to the disease in 2012.
I was an undergrad student back then, and I was doing biology, and I decided okay, this is what I want to study.
This research is part of a much larger puzzle that focuses on the overall gut-brain connection, with much more to learn about how what we ingest can impact what happens up here. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Saskatoon.
Coming up, assessing Canada's military might.
Our commitment as a government is we want to make sure that we streamline procurement process in Canada, we make it more agile.
Where our country is turning to bolster our fighting capabilities. Plus, the City of Lights aflame, what led to riots in the streets of Paris. As U.S. President Donald Trump threatens Canada's sovereignty, the federal government is turning to Europe to find new trading partners. CTV's Judy Trin on how Canadian companies could benefit from defense contracts overseas.
At the country's largest defense trade show, Donald Trump's threats of annexation are making it challenging for American companies to sell their products. Canada, which initially planned to buy all of its next-generation fighter jets from Lockheed Martin, is now reviewing the contract.
We are supporting the review that's ongoing right now,
and that will move to the government for final decisions.
While 16 jets from Lockheed Martin have been ordered, 72 other jets could be purchased from Swedish company Saab. The runner-up is suddenly back in contention.
We've worked with the Canadian government.
Saab's pitch for the jets and other weapons it wants to sell to Canada is that it will partner with Canadian companies to make military equipment here.
We would really build up a presence here and look to engage in a manufacturing capability, which is what we proposed under the previous fighter program, and is certainly what we will propose under an airborne early warning program through partnerships with companies like Bombardier.
To reduce reliance on the U.S., Canada announced it would join the Rearm Europe program, a $1 trillion manufacturing initiative.
If this is about the rearmament and reindustrialization of European companies and on their continent, that isn't necessarily good for Canada and our market. We need to be more productive. We need to see growth in the Canadian economy.
To reach the NATO 2% spending target by 2030, the government has to approve major projects like fighter jets and submarines. That involves getting rid of red tape.
Our commitment as a government is we want to make sure that we streamline procurement process in Canada. We make it more agile, more flexible.
Regardless of who Canada buys from, the Americans, the Europeans, or homegrown manufacturers, Canada at this point does not have enough soldiers to operate the equipment. The Canadian Forces is still in need of 15,000 recruits to be at full force. Judy Trin, CTV News, Ottawa.
Ukrainian officials confirmed they launched a massive stealth drone attack on a quartet of Russian air bases. The strikes hit early Sunday. At least 41 Russian warplanes were destroyed. Ukrainian forces say the operation took over a year and a half to plan, and the damage is estimated to be around $7 billion. Meanwhile, Russia launched nearly 500 drones at Ukraine overnight, killing 12 service members. The attacks come ahead of a new round of peace talks in Turkey tomorrow. At least 30 people have been killed and dozens hurt near an aid distribution site in Gaza. Witnesses say Israeli forces opened fire in the area. Israel is denying the attack, stating it was only warning shots towards unknown gunmen. In Paris, 2 people were killed and more than 190 injured following violent clashes last night. It happened during celebrations for Paris Saint-Germain's historic Champions League victory, European soccer's biggest prize. Police say more than 550 people were arrested. Despite Saturday night's rioting, thousands lined the same streets Sunday for the football club's victory parade. Still ahead, the future of home building. Why this Canadian company is looking abroad for ideas to help reshape the housing industry. As Canada faces a massive housing shortage, the federal government is promising to double the pace of housing construction. A lot of that will depend on prefabricated and modular housing. CTV's Sarah Plowman checks out a New Brunswick factory looking to borrow best practices from Europe to help increase inventory.
Inside this factory, workers pump out a house a week.
So this is day 3 of the build.
Factory-built homes make up a small percentage of Canada's housing, but Prime Minister Mark Carney has said prefabricated and modular housing are the future and promised billions in financing for businesses behind them.
It's not the silver bullet to the housing crisis. It's part of the solution. It isn't the ultimate solution. What we can offer is speed.
At the University of New Brunswick's research center that helps off-site builders innovate and scale up, its director of innovation explains what's key is stable long-term demand.
Creating that sustainable demand is a role that the government can play, but also incentivizing them to invest in innovation and automation.
To build more and more efficiently, Ironwood manufactured homes will soon move to a much larger factory.
So we'll have anywhere from 10 to 15 houses under construction at all times.
For best practices, he's looking to European countries such as Sweden, where factory-built housing has reshaped the housing industry.
The automation that they have is so much further ahead than where we are.
The Canadian Home Builders Association points out a lot of policy changes are needed for prefabricated and modular housing to scale up, like more consistent rules.
You cannot build the same house city to city to city because every city has different bylaws, zoning requirements, interpretations of the exact same provincial building code.
The Liberals have pledged to order units from manufacturers in bulk to create demand. This business owner is excited about the attention his industry is getting and wants Ottawa to invest in existing factories.
To help us maximize our capacity.
The owner of this factory says what's built here is not less expensive than a traditional home, and it can be customized. He also points to a challenge that even if they build hundreds more homes, tradespeople will be needed to set them up on properties. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Woodstock, New Brunswick.
Still ahead, a word of warning for those turning to the internet for medical advice. At a time when millions of Canadians don't have a family doctor, it may be tempting to turn to artificial intelligence for medical advice. But a team of Canadian researchers has found that when it comes to accurately diagnosing a health problem, services like ChatGPT can be wrong more often than they're right. Here's CTV's John Vedavali-Rao.
Yeah, so ChatGPT is my new doctor. Welcome to the team.
On social media, it's been promoted by plenty of patients.
Using ChatGPT as my functional doctor.
People self-diagnosing health problems by typing their symptoms into a chatbot. But just how accurate are the results?
There is a lot that ChatGPT is still getting wrong that doctors will be getting right.
A team led by researchers at the University of Waterloo looked at ChatGPT's version 4 and put it to the test, throwing at it open-ended questions modified from a medical licensing exam. And the results less than reassuring. Just 31% of responses were entirely correct. Only 34% were deemed clear.
If it's telling you that this is the right answer, even though that's completely wrong, then yeah, that's a big problem.
The study concluded any medical advice from chatbots should be cautiously approached due to a significant risk of misinformation.
ChatGPT is now better than your doctor.
While headlines have touted studies finding AIs outperforming doctors on multiple choice medical exams, the researchers worry people may place too much trust in a chatbot's response and skip seeing a real doctor entirely.
It could tell you everything's fine when there's actually that serious underlying issue. And they might just read it, be like, okay, everything's okay. But in reality, they should go to that medical practitioner.
Other experts note chatbot responses can sound very persuasive, even when they're wrong.
It's certainly something that people are using, and it's probably an uphill battle to tell them not to, but don't make decisions based on it.
I'm going to put ChatGPT to the test. And while the researchers acknowledge the AIs keep getting better, for now, relying on them alone could put your health in harm's way. John Vedavali-Rao, CTV News, Toronto.
That is our newscast for this Sunday evening. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Omar and Sandy will be here tomorrow, and I'll see you again on Friday. Good night.
CTV National News, Canada's #1 newscast.